Hey folks, I want to do a quick little video on power tools, the automotive power tools. Again, depending on what kind of industry you're in, is what kind of power tools you might use. I want to kind of give you some ideas on power tools and what you might want to add onto your toolbox as you go along. I will be putting up in the link down below a little bit about some of the recommendations I have for tools. And I'm going to try to start off with something hopefully inexpensive that you can get going with right now. And then later on, you can build into a better, greater tool. I'm not going to try to go too cheap, but I don't want to put too much of a budget restraint on yours. But you need to start thinking about buying tools as you go along. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to open up this actual PowerPoint for you that I put together. And this is going to be on actually power tools. And if you've seen the previous presentation on hand tools, you can actually see a little bit of the same. But again, like always, I like to point out what I like to bring to the table. I want to talk about different types of power tools. Now you can have electrical, and you can also have air tools. And electrical is getting better and better. Electric power tools are getting better and better. So more and more techs are going more electrical, which is great. And I'll tell you some of the disadvantages of using air tools too. Well, there's different types of trouble lights that are out there. Also, I'm not talking about on the dash of your car. I'm talking about lights that you use to diagnose and look at things too. I'll also talk about different type of grinders and bench vices that are out there that'll help you with your job also. And I'll get into hydraulic presses, the portable cranes, and chain hoists, and also get into engine stands. And then I'll talk a little bit about the maintenance on it. Now, even though it may be shop related, and some of the tools I'm talking about, but you need to take care of things just like everybody else. There should be, in my view, not just the shop owner to have bring things somebody to repair them, and it could be that too. It just depends on your shop policy, but of course keeping things clean, keeping things well maintained is a great a policy, I think, like that. So air compressors, usually they're stored in the back in someplace, and a lot of times in their own little shed. They get quite noisy. So if you have them inside the shop, it can actually be too noisy to really hear things, which I'm a big believer in. You got to be able to have good communication in the shop and to make sure nobody gets hurt and stuff like that too. So this is an air compressor. They are regulated at a certain pressure that's driven by electric motor. And then it uses a compressor. So here's the electric motor right here. And this compressor compresses the air, and then it fills up this tank. Then there's a line coming off of here, going to a regulated piece. And you got some shutoff valves too, in case there's a line break or something like that. And then off it goes to the air supply to the whole shop, where you're going to either have air hoses hanging from the ceiling, or you're going to have air hoses coming off in a different direction at different benches and stuff like that. So this is, one style. There's actually, this is kind of like the vertical one. I'm sorry, the horizontal one, whereas your vertical will be stand up too. You can see there a bunch of different equipment shops and stuff like that. Some people have, air compressors at their house. It's great for filling up tires. It's also great for powering up air tools too. So this is going to be providing the air for your air tool. There are also different types of air nozzles. This actually, there is a regulation that was put out, and I believe it was put out by OSHA. Yeah, it is by OSHA. OSHA actually put a regulation that they can only have so much air pressure coming out of them because people can actually be hurt. Now, air nozzles should not be used as toys. It doesn't sound like a bad thing to blow your friend with a little bit of air, but folks, that air could get underneath their skin, cause an air bubble, which is really painful. You could actually blow something into their eyes, and who knows what else could happen. So you want to be very careful with the air guns, and the nozzle being pointed at different areas and stuff like that. The tools in the shop, air tools in the shop, usually have a connector fitting for a quick connect and disconnect. Not always do they have it hosed directly up to the tool itself, so that you can actually change out tools as you go along. There are dozens of tools out there, and different kinds of flavors. I put up kind of like a comparison between air tools and electric battery powered tools. Now there are tools like drills and stuff that you can get that are actually has a cord going to an electrical outlet too. But we're getting down to where it's more and more preferable by technicians that they have a battery powered, and the battery technology and the design of the electric tools has gotten much, much better over the years. This is air tools over here, and they make all kinds of shapes and flavors of them. I'm just want to go over some basic ones. There's impact, air ratchets, die grinders, air drills, air blowgun like you've seen before, also air operated grease guns, and then we get into the different battery powered ones that go along. Same flavor on both sides of the fence. It just depends how they're actually powered. So this is an Ingersoll Rand, which is a brand of air tool. This is a 1/2-inch drive on this particular one, and it's great for taking off, let's say wheel studs. It takes off bolts off of an engine, takes bolts or different types of fasteners off of a car. Now, there are different sizes of impact wrenches, as these are called, and they can be 1/4 inch, of course, 1/2 inch, and 3/4 full 1 inch. It depends on what they're being used for. They are directional. This is actually adding more air pressure to it, so you can actually put the amount of air pressure inside the tool itself, and allowing it to put more pressure or less pressure. And this is again a different style here. We can put the pressure across here. Also, this has a directional, so you push it in and it goes one direction. So this generally it would be loosening, and this would be tightening here, like that. Now, I do want to say something about impact wrenches. I prefer, and this is what I teach my techs, it's okay to use an impact wrench to take the bolts out, but when they're going back in, you want to tighten them down finger tight with your hands. You can use the air impact to bring them down a little bit, but you want to start the actual nuts, bolts, fasteners by hand, and then actually use a actual torque wrench to finish up the torque on. I see a lot of techs, and I see it in tire shops too, where they actually just use the air gun to tighten your wheels up. Now, is it to the specifications for tightness? We don't know, because some say, well, my torque wrench goes up to, it torques them down to 100 PSI. Is that enough for the tire? Is it too much for the tire? We could be stretching the studs out. We could be damaging the bolts or the nuts on it also. So it's better to just tighten them down and then take your torque wrench to bring them down to factory specification torque. And here is the fully electric, which is really great because it's very portable. And now you don't have to worry about having a hose at the end of it to actually connect it to the wall or to the hose where that kind of whips around. Hoses are on the floor, or when you're in the middle of something, and all of a sudden the retractor pulls the hose up. So it makes it a little bit better. Well, it makes it a little bit easier, more convenient, let's put it that way, to actually have an actual battery powered. And they've gotten more powerful over the years. They used to be kind of weak. Now they're actually take the actual wheel studs off. I mean, the wheel nuts off, and they can actually take some of the crank bolts out and the engine bolts out too. The difference you're going to see right here is, you remember back when we were talking about hand tools and sockets and stuff like that. Well, you're seeing they were chrome. Okay, so they were chrome on the outside. This is a impact socket. This impact socket is black, and it's a little more stout. And in other words, it's got more meat on it, and it will hold up to the impact drivers. Impact wrenches will not destroy. If you have a chrome socket and you are using it on an impact, driver, okay, or impact wrench, and you start going with it and you're trying to tighten it down, and that socket, whether it be tightening it down or taking out, and that socket could actually shatter into your hands and cut your hands. So you need to have impact sockets when using impact drivers. If you're just going to be doing everything by hand, which is going to take a lot of time, it's not going to be a great thing for you to use chrome sockets on it. You need to get some impact sockets. This is an impact ratchet. This is actually this one right here is air driven, okay, like that. So this one actually uses air, just like your other. You can actually get these in electric also. I'm assuming it is air. It looks like pretty much like an air ratchet there also. And here's another type of tool. This is a die grinder. We use them for cleaning up surfaces. We also use them, they come with different disc types on them. You can actually clean up surfaces. You can flatten out surfaces with the die grinder too. Now, caution on these, especially when you're doing intake manifold gaskets or anything that might get into like the engine oil and stuff like that. When you're getting the valley down into the intake manifold, you want to be very careful about what kind of material you use. I prefer to use an old style scraper do it that way, because if you get the flake of the material going down into the oil and it goes down to the oil pan, you can actually plug up the actual screen on the actual the oil pump pickup. And then after a period of time, it can actually starve the engine oil, and then you got engine damage too. All right, so trouble lights or drop lights, sometimes they call them too. And the old style was a incandescent or a bulb type one, and there are, hopefully you don't have one at your house or anything, or you have it at your work. But what can happen is, if you're going at it, and you got the light up there and it falls, it can shatter. And if you've got any kind of fuel vapor or any kind of gaseous fuels in the area, it can actually ignite and cause a fire. And I unfortunately had to go to a shop one time. Somebody called me up and said, "Hey, Marty, can you come over? Our tech just had taken to emergency because he got caught fire in the shop." And I kind of got there and I said, "Sure, I can help you out." And find out they had the old incandescent bulb, and it fell down, and the guy was working on a fuel tank, and he had fuel on him, and it caught him on fire. They got him put out, but still, it's scary. But Most of them, the bulbs now, or and like this trouble light right here is battery operated. One and two, they use a LED, which is great because it puts a lot more light. Or they have the old they have. And I prefer LED. Let's put it that way. But there was some tube type ones out there too that really, didn't put as much light out there, your fluorescent type lights, but I prefer to use the LEDs because the LEDs are just a diode that if they get dropped and they break, which they're pretty bulletproof on a lot of these drop lights, they will actually end up uh, destroying themselves without not a whole lot of spark into them like that too. All right, so here is an actual grinder. Sometimes, well, this one actually has it. It has a grinder wheel on this side, and it has a buffing wheel on this side too. And it's a wire buffer, wire wheel over here. Now you can actually have different types, and depending on the shop that you're at, different types of grinders out there. This one's actually on a pedestal, and it has the on-off buttons down here. But you'll notice what I really like about it is it has the shields in place. These shields need to be in place, folks. Do not take them off. Make sure they tighten up so that they can be put in a position for you to do the work. This helps protect your eyes. That does not mean that, hey, these are in place so I don't have to wear safety glasses, which I prefer that you actually use a shield instead, because the shields are great, but then it could flick up and actually get beyond it and get into your eyes that way too. So be very careful and wear your safety glasses, preferably as shields, and have your shields in place at all times. All right, so here is a bench, just a regular bench mounted vise. These will help you in the field for doing all kinds of work. You want to fit something, you want to cut off that stalk with a hacksaw or something like that. This is going to be great to hold things in place. Now, some vices will actually come with some actual covers to actually for softer work. You're working with some brass or some aluminum. I almost said it the way I used to say it when I was little, but aluminum, and it will actually damage with the jaws if you're not careful like that. So we use this for all kinds of work in the shop. And here's a press. This is a hydraulic press. This is to press things together. You might be pressing some bearings out or in, some shafts in or out. And this is a great, I like that it actually has that actual pressure gauge on it too. So you can tell you, whoa, maybe it's not what I think it is, and go from there. All right. So it's adjustable too. And here is sometimes they call it cherry picker, or they'll call it an actual engine hoist. And this is for pulling engines in and out. There are a similar, type of hoist that are chain from the rafters coming down. There'll be a chain, and then there'll be a little pulley assembly to actually use too. That's on a lot of your A-frame type engine hoists that you can. I believe the only ones you can really at this point, unless you're really set up where it's not safe to do, but you can actually buy some of the hoists and they're on a very large beam affair. And it actually has the chain with the either, a lot of times, you can have them with a kind of a roll-up chain, or you can actually get them with a motorized too, which really makes it kind of nice when you're actually working on engines and actually on transmissions too. Now, this is, I like that they covered them up with plastic, but these are some engine stands. You'll notice this one's over here and this one's over here. This is two different styles, but they are really nice about for building engines. So you can actually rotate them around and work on the bottom end of the engine, and you can then you can rotate it again to go underneath, or you can actually have on some of them where you can actually have a 45-degree angle, so you can work on another angle of the engine too. This is I've seen this quite a bit, and on the heavy engine end of the world too. But this is a different type of stand. Instead of like we had on the previous slide there, we actually had them kind of like this way. Now we can actually have them flattened out this way to actually work on the engine that way. I honestly, folks, I don't see the advantage of that, because I really want to be able to move it around so I can actually work on different angles from side to side. So basically what they're doing, instead of having the engine going out this way, they have the engine flat like this, and then they kind of spin it around that way. I don't really see the advantage of that, but this is one style of engine stand that they actually have out there too. And whenever building an engine, I do want to say this about this actual style. They did show that they have an oil catch pan underneath here, because you will spill a little oil and you don't want to put it on the floor itself there, because sometimes that oil, trying to get it off the ground, can be really bad, and then you can have a hard and then you can have a slip and fall accident like that too. So hopefully this was a good overview of the different styles of power, I would say shop equipment and some power tools. And like I said, we're getting slowly but surely, I shouldn't say slowly, it's more and more the power tools are going away from air and going more into the battery powered type tools nowadays. So, hopefully this was a beneficial to you. And if you have any thoughts, and just kind of leave down at the bottom there any comments, and also please go ahead and if there's some other things you would like me to make, let me know, and I'll put it on my list of things to do. All right. Talk to you soon. Take care. Bye for now.